I'm Jesus, senior engineering leader. So I've been working in multiple companies from different industries, Thomas Cook, Fund Circle, the last one, Capital One, and Just Eat, different sizes. And now I'm also looking for my next role, my next adventure. And so I'm getting a lot of experience on recruitment, not only the part that I was managing myself or working for these companies, but now, as a candidate in this new world that we are
Mm.
dealing with.
I always find it interesting when you've got somebody who has context from both sides of it, both sides of the fence, right? So
A lot of context, yes.
good. Well, let's jump in then. So first question to you is as a candidate rather than as a hiring manager. But what are some of the patterns that you've noticed in the hiring processes that you've been involved in as a candidate? And then what's your view of the job market right now?
So I can see that the market is different now from what it was a few years ago, right? So I mean, the market itself is changing constantly. Now it's moving towards more the company-driven market rather than the employee-driven market.
Mm.
And that is also changing a little bit, the rules of play. But what it is, very notorious is LinkedIn is also having a very strong effect into it, right? So it's very accessible to post a new role, but also very accessible for candidates to apply for a new role. So within a couple of hours of a role being opened in LinkedIn, you're getting hundreds of applicants. And
Mm.
what is happening? What is the consequences of that? You're gonna get a lot of ghosting. Companies they cannot cope with the amount of applicants, the amount of work that required to filter CVs, and then there's also the use of AI to cover for the buzzwords and trying to do that screening. That is not always the best when a bot is doing it, and
Mm.
they cannot extract the context and the right skills out of it.
So it's interesting. You said that the market is different now to what it was a few years ago. Um, do you see it flipping back anytime soon?
I can see that after the financial year, so the roles are coming up, much more often than they were
Mm.
doing, towards the end of the year, right? So a lot of things are happening in the world that bring, uncertainty. And companies, they cannot recruit, like freely. They need to think about, okay, what is it going to be for us in the next 6 months, in the next year? But I think that the market is definitely turning towards the right direction. So we're getting more roles advertised. Um, and AI is not yet taking, the roles from us. I think that
Mhm.
we're still in that learning process. So there's still a way to get there.
And I guess when you get to your level, which is kind of senior engineering manager, engineering director, VP of software, there's far less roles available than there are at the mid and the senior engineering level. So the competition for roles is maybe even higher.
It is. And this is one of the things that is not changing yet on how it operates. It is very important that for these roles, you have very good relationship with recruitment agencies, with recruiters that you can trust. Why? Because these roles, they're not going to be always advertised online. So these
Mm.
roles are going to be, more discreetly, put into the market, and the filtering is going to be more exhaustive in different ways. So working with recruiters can help you. But of course, there are less of those roles. So the competition is very, aggressive. And for the minimum number of roles, a lot of people in your network are going to be applying at the same time. So you can also talk to your friends and discover what is that they're asking, what is happening. But yes, it's complicated. So you need to get very good relationship with recruiters.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay. So you mentioned something a minute ago that I wanted to just come back to, Jesus. Is there a bit of a disconnect between what companies say they want and then the candidates that they actually engage with?
I think so. I have my own opinion. Of course, and my
Mm.
opinion could be, different and, not the same as other people, that are in the market or the companies themselves. But there's a lot of small and medium companies that are recruiting at the moment, and that's great. So that means that the market, is working out. But what they're looking for is very diverse and not always, consistent. So there's a lot of role inflation. So meaning that they are recruiting for directors with teams of 5 people, and they want the strategy, the people leadership, the long-term vision of the role, but at the same time they want, the coding, the architecting, so the unicorns.
Yeah.
At the same time, small companies, they are sometimes scared of hiring people from bigger companies because they think that working with bigger teams is not necessarily the same way that working with smaller teams. And I agree. So there are different, ways of working with bigger or smaller teams, but that doesn't mean that you cannot, adapt to one or the other.
Mhm.
Um, but mostly we keep seeing the same things all the time, and this is been happening for years. When you see the role description, you're getting like 100 checks that you need to mark before applying. Do you really need 100 checks? All the skills in the spectrum of technologies to be able to be a good match for the role? No, I don't think so.
Mm.
One thing that the companies they forget is that the 100 skills that they're looking for today, they're not going to be the same one in 6 months. And you don't want to hire for skills, for hard skills now that tomorrow will not be valid. You want to hire for people who can skill up in any time that you need to make a change, or a
Mm.
change of direction, or a strategic change.
So this is interesting. So far we've been talking about you as a candidate, but if we try and flip it back to before when you was a hiring manager and you'd have a job spec, you have the usual application and hiring and interview process. If you wasn't looking for those 100 checks on a CV, what would you be looking for as a hiring manager?
So when I was a hiring manager, and either directly for direct reports of myself or indirectly, within my org, you always want to make sure that you don't have more than 5 to 7, bullets of what you're looking for,
Mm.
and you need some level of, expertise on languages. It doesn't need to be one language specifically, but it will be different depending on the seniority, right? So you're looking for a senior engineer, you probably want, more expertise in Java, .NET, React. So, but do you need that senior level? Can you go for a junior person who can skill up and learn? So it's a balance that you need to do. So what you're looking for a candidate, minimum of projects, changing projects. You want to see that they are growing, that they are making, their experience by changing projects and some level of changing companies that demonstrates flexibility, adaptability, and growth.
Mm. Okay, that's interesting. That's really good feedback, actually. It's really good information for a lot of people listening that I'm sure are in the same position as you that are on the market. So, yeah, that's cool. You mentioned something a minute ago about hiring for the future. So, when thinking about long-term team building, what's the difference between hiring for what you need now and then hiring for what you need in the future? Like, how do you know what you need in a year's time, rather than
And
okay,
that,
we need a software engineer to be able to come and do this. Let's hire for that now. What's the difference?
that's a very good question, and it's the difficult one, right? So what you know is that what you need now. Why? Because you're probably hiring for attrition. You need
Mm.
to backfill positions. You need to get your teams, in a full state so they can deliver the best. But that's the easy one. So what do you need in the future is where you're gonna need to sit down with your team and then put a plan together, right? So, but doing it in collaboration with the other parts of the business, right? So including product, because if you don't know what it is in the roadmap, if you are not having a say to what it is in the roadmap, you cannot hire strategically. So you're just going to be, reacting, and reacting is expensive
Mm.
because hiring is a process that takes time. And if you put in together, the amount of time for screening, for interviewing, the notice period, so you're not going to have good hires, especially if you're hiring for full teams in less than 6 months. So you need to plan very much in advance. Okay, what it is on my roadmap, what it is on my mission for the company, and what is that we're gonna need for that? Can we leverage the people that we have? Can we train them? Can we skill them up? And based on those answers, so then is when you say, okay, so maybe I need more people, or maybe I need less. Maybe I can convert the people that I have into something else. Maybe I need to use, the help of someone else, not necessarily hiding.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. So there's a couple of options there. Reskilling the workforce in new areas, so AI being the first one that comes to mind. Not just external hiring, there's other solutions. Okay, we'll come on to that. Before we get to that though, could you just talk to me a little bit about the pain of losing a senior team member? So what's often underestimated about the ripple effect of that loss, and how can you better prepare for it? Because you very rarely get somebody who stays with the company throughout their whole career, right? So there's always going to be attrition, which is normal, which is understood. But when you've got attrition at that VP level or at that software engineering manager level who's got some responsibility for 10, 20, 40 people, that ripple effect compared to losing a mid-level engineer could sometimes be greater because, the responsibility, the direction, the vision, the motivation of the team. So how do you prepare for that?
And I'm gonna make an emphasis on this question because as you are telling it, something is coming up to my mind, and it's very common now. Companies that trying, to eliminate layers of management, and which I think that is very valid. But sometimes they forget what is the value of these management, layers. And in my case, and with my experience, when you're losing a manager, you're losing sometimes the link to the team. So depending on what level of manager you're looking at, so if he's a team manager, so that's the person that is driving the team, that is having the closest connection to the team and is responsible for understanding the individual strengths, but also putting together that into a group effort to deliver. If that person is reporting to you and they leave, it means that you're going to need to step into that for a number of months. And that is going to take a lot of time from you, but also a lot of psychological, constraint to try to get to know what is happening with everyone. So how can you support them all, but at the same time staying on your role at this level? So if that happens for a sustained period of time, you are the one that is most likely going to get into burnout if you want to do it well. So there are some mitigations. You can start thinking about who are the champions within the teams that can help you. And then you start delegating. Maybe you can promote internally, or you know what is going to happen and start, hiding if there is an opportunity that you can do, even before that situation happens. But when it happens, you are going to need to step in to cover for that vacancy, and that is going to take a lot of time from you, and that time is going to be taken away from your leadership responsibilities or the more senior leadership responsibilities. So I would not underestimate at all losing one senior member of your team.
Yeah, it's a really good point you've made there as well. And I think that with the way that the talent in the market is at the moment, in abundance, as you said, it's a company's market rather than a candidate's market, right? I think it's really, really important to be able to understand the ability and the expectation set on some of these hiring managers and engineering managers and VPs, because like you said, if they're shifting across projects, if they're constantly maintaining a good pipeline, if they're constantly maintaining good motivation within the team, I think those are the candidates that would stand out rather than checking those 100 boxes.
Mm-hmm. I think also, that at the level of senior leadership, you're looking after multiple domains. And these engineering managers, for example, they're looking into more individual domains. So at your level, you're going to need to be looking at a higher, approach of how, looking into everything rather than deep understanding. So when you get in multiple teams, so there's a number of times that you can go try to understand everything and cover for it. But if you're losing two of them at the same time, everything is falling down. So
and that's where
it's
the
not
burnout starts to
sustainable.
creep in.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Okay, So let's talk a little bit about tech, about technology. Slash AI, right?
Of course.
I mean, it comes hand in hand now, doesn't it? So, with AI and the advancements in AI and the way that tech is evolving at breakneck speed, where do you think companies should draw the line between upskilling internally, which we've kind of referenced already, versus bringing in other sources, which I think is what you were about to talk about a moment ago?
So I think that everything depends on your priorities. So what is the urgency of upscaling, yourself into AI? Well, two different things when we're talking about AI. So are you building up a product based on AI? So the typical chatbot or whatever other solution for underwriting or similar agentic, development? Or are you just bringing AI for enhancing developer experience, right? So I think that is two different things, right? So I think that when you're looking at enhancing developer experience, so what is it taking so long? So you should be doing it already. And if you're not doing it, so start ASAP, right? So bring, the tools for the developers to use it, and start getting familiar with it if that is not happening. But not only developers, remember that you have also quality people into it. But when you're thinking about developing new products that are based on AI, capabilities to enhance your product, your company itself, what is the priority of that? Do you need to do it with urgency, or can you, dilate it on time, right? So if there is urgency, you cannot wait until your people are ready for it, right? So, and think of it, AI is happening for only a couple of years, and not many people still have experience in doing it. So we see a lot of job requisitions in the market that they are asking for a lot of experience on AI. But the reality is that not many companies are actively working on AI products that go beyond the chatbot. So meaning that you're not going to have that experience organically happening in companies that then you can hire from. So you're going to need specialized companies that can help you with that. Why? Because they are doing it. They are spending 100% of the time improving that, so they can help you with the product that you want to develop with urgency, rather than yourself organically scaling up your teams.
Which can take a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of investment, and then those people may end up leaving anyway.
Exactly, it's a trial and error too. So you're gonna be trying something, it's gonna work or not, and then you're gonna need to redo again. And I've seen it in companies, for example, with open banking back in the past. So we're trying an approach, it's working, it's not working, trying a different one, eventually purchasing another company that has experience, and then you bring it to you. So there's definitely different approaches. So I'm gonna say, if you have the urgency to do something fast and you don't have the experience, don't try to upscale it on your own. Bring the right support to do it fast.
Okay, so on that theme then, what do you think are some of the misconceptions about using a partner or an outsourced partner or external engineers?
I'm going to be very honest with you here. I'm not a fan of outsourcing. And the reason for that is because it brings a different concept of how are we developing, right? So, but there's always a reason why we want to do it, right? So there's a business case for everything. If you have projects that can be, extracted from your main, development flow, and they can be worked independently, you have a case for outsourcing, or in this case, for contractors. If you have other, requirements, like you need to upskill, your engineering team, or you want to progress towards a migration or refactoring, and you cannot cope with your team doing it organically, you need to bring support. Then is when you are looking into the strategic partners for doing it. So, and that is very important that you're choosing the right one, because there's a lot of partners in the market that you can go for. So you need to find the one that is going to help you upskilling, and you're going to need to set up, the boundaries and the right, goals at the beginning. So what do you want to get? Do you want to focus on upskilling your people, focus on doing the migration and then hand it over to you? Or do you want them, embedded in the teams and speeding up the process? I think that there is a very good business case for them. And most of the times is because you don't have that power yourself. And for a period of time, you're going to invest on that approach. And I think that is a very good one to do, especially if you're under a rush to do it. So if you can invest on it, go and do it. So it's going to be better than trying to, again, skill your team and then getting the frustration of context switching in between BAU, bugs, the normal development, and then trying to do everything at the same time. So bring the partner, get the help, and everyone is happy.
But you're saying that you would prefer to use that help if it was a siloed project?
When we're talking about outsourcing or contractors, silo projects. When we're talking about upskilling or bringing certain innovation, it's very common, for example, the companies that they want to get into digital transformation or moving, everything to the cloud, or even there's still a lot of companies going agile nowadays, right? So you bring in a strategic partner for these cases to help you with, right? So, or the solution could be that you suddenly, recruit 100 people, right? But what are you doing with 100 people that you recruit, a year after when everything finishes, right? And so is that not the same as getting, a strategic partner working with you that bring the right experience? And you know that they bring the experience, because if you're hiring yourself, there's always the risk. You don't know what is that they're doing, what experience they bring with themselves. So a partner that can help you with these specifics, going, cloud, digital transformation, agile transformation, etc. So particular projects like some Java to Node.js refactoring. So these things, we can get used for partners for them.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I guess, like you said, everything has a business case, everything has a business story and a user story, right? So I guess it depends really on what you're looking to achieve, the velocity, the urgency, the tech, the skill as well. Sometimes the skill isn't available in the market. A partner that you keep referencing, they have the skill to be able to come in and deliver quickly.
Yeah, and you need to be also very careful on what the culture this is going to create. Because when you start bringing external people in the teams, it's very important that you bring the right partner that is not going to disrupt the culture, but enhancing it. You want to bring the partner that is going to help building up a culture of collaboration, of learning, of growing, rather than the mistrust that could also happen if there is some secrecy or some boundaries around what is happening with one project or another project. So the right partner could help building up the trust and the culture.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so if we're looking at the third party theme for a moment as well, how would you say a third party would be able to actually help a company look more profitable on the balance sheet? So maybe when it comes to selling, for example.
So definitely, I think that when the companies, they want to plan for the next move, it's very important that one of the factors that they need to look after is are they sustainable from a people point of view. So you cannot hire 200 people if that is not a sustainable option. So that is going to put your company into the wrong position for a potential exit plan. In any flavor, doesn't matter. So if you don't have the right team, a team that is not efficient, so it's not going to be a good sign for anyone that could be interested in the company. So having the right partner that brings the experience and the reputation, and that is not tightening you up with constraints that you cannot negotiate in different ways. So it could definitely help a lot. So why? First, you are giving the message, you are working with the experts. And second, you're also giving the message that this is a contract that we can negotiate, that is not difficult to negotiate, and that can be stopped at any time when the terms of the contracts are complete or when changes are needed.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so you've got these experts you can tap into when you need them, and when you don't need them, there's no long-term buyout clause or anything like that. So they're here to deliver the expertise, but then once that's done, they're off the balance sheet. It's not as if you've got to maybe, have a huge round of redundancies, for example.
Remember that we are in Europe, right? So now the marketing here needs to look after the people that they're hiring for.
Mm.
So you cannot hire for free. So everything has a cost. And firing people or letting people go after reorgs is expensive.
Mm.
So a lot of companies, they need to do reorgs before being purchased or moving to the next phase because they need to make themselves more efficient. So this is an example of how to utilize partners and third parties that can help you, avoiding that pain that is, less expensive in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Well, Jesus, this has been really cool. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Definitely one that I'm able to contribute to as well. Obviously, you're somebody who's in the market. You've got a few interviews going on at the moment, just back from a holiday, so fresh perspective on everything as well. Are you actively open for people to reach out to you regarding opportunities?
I am. I'm always happy, to have interesting conversations. There are a lot of interesting companies out there. So I'm open to talk a lot. You probably noticed already, I can talk a lot.
That's the Spanish in you.
Yeah, there's a lot of Spanish in me.